South Africa's proposed electricity tariff framework policy is expected to be gazetted today. Cabinet has approved a revised electricity pricing policy for public comments that aims to reduce high electricity costs. The policy seeks to establish a tariff path that provides certainty on the cost of electricity over the next 10 years. To understand what exactly is being proposed and what it could mean for energy affordability and energy justice, we're joined by energy analyst and South African Independent Power Producer Association Management Committee member Matthew Cruz. Matthew, thank you. Thanks very much for your time this morning.
Hello, good morning, and hello to your viewers.
Okay, so when we look at it, the revised EPP states that Eskom will no longer be allowed to pass operational and technical inefficiency costs onto the consumer. So let's understand that better. I mean, in practice, how strictly can NERSA audit and enforce a ceiling on technical losses without hurting Eskom's baseline stability?
Great. Yeah, so the technical, if I'm to quote the minister now, he said that consumers should pay for service efficiency and not utility inefficiency. And he referenced that 1 to 2.5% of the electricity cost that we're currently paying is due to inefficiency. So it's for electricity that isn't paid for by municipalities or people that aren't paying the electricity. And those costs is unfair to pass along to the consumers. So this policy framework that's electricity pricing policy that's being gazetted today is outlining exactly how the cost-reflective nature of the tariffs are going to be implemented across distribution, transmission, and generation. And so we'll expect to see a change in our bills once the policy is put into law. And so households and businesses will start seeing different line items where the costs have been separated out. And NERSA has been given more power to also audit those costs, not just accept from Eskom, this is our stated cost of generation supply, but they are given now the authority to interrogate those costs and confirm you cannot pass these costs through because this is the costs that are due to electricity theft and not due to technical losses.
Yeah,
that's one of the examples of how we're going to get towards a more cost effective and lower cost of electricity.
I want to break into that more because you mentioned that as consumers, we're actually going to see these distinct charges, I imagine for generation, for transmission and for distribution. So that'll be a lot more transparent. But, you know, will this truly drive down retail costs via competitive market forces, or is it just going to expose how expensive municipal distribution surcharges are?
Yeah, so the government was also clear, Minister, saying that immediate cost reduction is not going to take place by this being implemented. We're not going to see in like day one or the first year a change in the cost of electricity just because the pricing policy has come out. Is to assist with transparency of what is the costs that are being incurred, and also with certainty going forward with a 10-year projection of what the price of electricity is planned to be. And so one of the aspects that Eskom was saying regarding the unbundling and why they were pushing back on dealing with electricity traders, NERSA registered traders, and also on the transmission side, having those assets transferred out of the Eskom in NTSA into the transmission system operator, is that they were saying that there is not a rules-based approach to the market costing of electricity. Now, this is the rules that they have been asking for and waiting for. And this will assist with the next step of the democratization of our energy sector. So we've been waiting for this, when I say we, the Independent Power Producer Association and the market has been waiting for the certainty from government. And it's very good to see this next step that's taken place. It's like a progression of steps we're taking towards the democratized energy sector, which will then enable competitiveness and competition.
Yeah.
So one of the ways it's going to enable that is that we will be able to see, okay, Eskom generation, here's the exact costs that are being charged relative to the transmission and distribution costs, and we can replace that Eskom generation cost with now independent power producer costs of electricity, which is typically half of what Eskom is charging.
Okay.
So that's one of the ways that we'll get towards a more lower cost of electricity.
Yeah, if a person can afford to go that route as well. But So here's a major question, and I think an important one is that it all sounds ideal. It does. But given that municipal debt to Eskom remains a crisis, it is a crisis, do you honestly think local municipalities have the digital auditing capabilities and, I suppose more importantly, the financial transparency required to implement these unbundled billing rules effectively?
So at short, I'd say that municipalities are understaffed and they do not have the current capacity. If I had to say short, I'd say no. The answer is right now. Thankfully, along with this policy, what is coming is support from the government in order to assist the municipalities with rolling out this new approach to electricity pricing. So one of the things that was mentioned from Cyril Ramaphosa in the budget speech was that there would be professional services that are going to be deployed to the municipalities to assist with ring fencing the electricity collection and also the ring fence and coordinate the deployment of that electricity into the distribution network infrastructure. So that looks like not just Eskom coming along and taking over your distribution network if you're not doing well as a municipality and you're not able to collect money. It looks like the government now supporting local municipalities and supporting the rollout of these new rules to the municipalities. And one of the things that comes to mind is the cost-reflective aspect of the tariffs. The municipalities are going to need to do their cost of supply studies, which typically they aren't able to do. They don't have capacity to do it, as you mentioned. Like, do they have the resources and skills?
Yeah.
They currently don't, but they are going to get supported from the government now, and this enables that support to be rolled out as well.
Well, we hope so. I mean, the minister has promised this a 10-year price forecast horizon. I suppose this is to offer certainty to businesses, obviously. But given the regulatory disputes, such as NERSA's recent multi-billion rand methodology corrections, I mean, how realistic is a stable 10-year tariff path?
So yeah, it's going to need to be updated every year, and I anticipate that the initial 10-year tariff path will look quite different to what is actually seen in 5 years' time, as we have this flood of solar power coming onto the grid, and part of this policy being implemented is giving clarity to the investors, the international investors that are going to want to deploy large-scale solar and wind farms and battery facilities in the country. The 10-year price policy will at least provide a kind of certainty for the financiers that are assessing the financial viability of projects and give them some comfort that at least there's now a policy in place that is far into the future in terms of we haven't had this before. We've only had to wait to see what Eskom submits for a NERSA pricing policy in their MIPD, multi-year price determination applications. And then we have seen in the last 3 that Eskom asks for very high amounts, 33%, and then NERSA says, no, you're going to get 12.7%. So like effectively halves the application. And in that context where we were, investors didn't have the confidence to say, well, this is the price we can put down as what we'll actually be able to sell our electricity for. So they couldn't actually determine what their revenue was. So there was a lot of risk taking. A lot of the IPPs at the moment have already deployed with the hope that this will come into place. Now it is in place. So now we can expect to see more foreign direct investments flooding into the country for renewable energy projects, which will further help bring down the cost of electricity in South Africa.
Do you expect long-term pricing forecasts to encourage more aggressive private sector deployment of renewables? Or, on the other side, could a state-capped tariff path inadvertently stifle the emerging day-ahead competitive market?
Well, thankfully, I'd say it's more the former than the latter. The reason why I say that is because currently, just taking solar and battery and applying that 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. most productive hours of the day delivery path, we know that the current price of electricity, this is now kind of internal to the markets. When I say we know, like I know that we can provide power for half of what Eskom is currently providing power for on the generation side. So that's including the transmission and the distribution, separating out those costs. We know that we're half as expensive as coal when you just take solar power, store it in batteries, provide that battery power in the morning from 5 a.m., have the solar power coming at 8 a.m., and then provide the power until 9 p.m., so covering the peak tariffs. So we know that we currently are half the cost of generation power from coal power stations. And so at that rate, we know that when we are, the capital providers can come in saying, well, here's what we can provide for. the cost of solar panels continuously goes down, and also wind, and also batteries. So we're currently half of what Eskom charges. So there is a market here. We're supplying 24 gigawatts during the middle of the day, up to 26, 28 gigawatts in the winter time in the peak tariffs. So there's a lot of electricity that is to be consumed by the nation. And if we can provide it for half the cost that Eskom is currently charging, and Eskom going forward is just kind of projecting their costs to increase because of needing to maintain their old power stations and decommissioning costs, then we have a business case. So I'd say it is the former, it's not the latter. And the pricing policy also then assists with companies that are looking to put down large-scale electricity consumption. So one thinks of AI data farms, placing them in the Northern Cape where there is abundant wind and solar, wind during the day, during the night, sorry, and solar during the day. And you don't need to have low latency because the hyperscalers that are using data farms to train their models don't need to have very low latency. Data farms, data centers can also be put down in Mossel Bay and also in Melkbos, where there's undersea cable connections where there is low latency. So we've got great capability to have electricity demand increase in the country. But what's been stifling that is the unknown aspect of what will the price of electricity be in 2 years' time. We can never answer that question. At least now we've got a policy document that guides, okay, well, this is what it's expected to be. And then we can track against expectations. Are we actually meeting that? And then going forward, it at least assists with the risk aspect of your capital deployment into these large-scale solar and wind farms.
I mean, you've been warning about Eskom's death spiral for a while, where rising tariffs are just pushing the middle class to adopt private sector and solar. I mean, leaving the grid's financial burden on poorer households. Do you think this new framework will tackle this particular issue?
So that's an interesting topic of how does Eskom get out of its death spiral, and there's a number of ways they can do that. It's interestingly now taking a path of partnering with independent power producers at these old power stations that you see on the screen at the moment that are aging and are projected to come offline around 2030. About a third of the fleet was scheduled to come offline due to old age and inefficiency. And what Eskom is now doing through Eskom Green is repurposing the capacity for being able to put electricity onto the grid at those power stations and providing land to independent power producers to come on and bid competitively in an open, transparent manner to put down solar and wind farms in the vicinity of the power stations and then connect in that way. And through that, Eskom themselves will start being able to benefit from the lower cost of renewable energy and themselves also become more profitable. And so there is a path out of the Eskom death spiral by Eskom being able to create power at a lower cost by partnering with IPPs. And also, interestingly, that in terms of their spiral, one could look at this document and say, well, actually, it's increasing because what they're doing is also assisting with businesses and households getting solar on their roof by providing net billing. And that's a technical term that means that if you produce a kilowatt hour or a unit of electricity on your roof as a business or household, and you don't need that electricity because you don't have enough demand at the moment, you can put that back onto the grid and you'll get a one-for-one exchange, a net billing exchange for that kilowatt hour instead of just a reduced rand amount. And so it actually really makes the business case for getting solar much better on your roof and on your business. And that's interesting in that, one can say, well, we're going to have now reduced demand in the country. But I would say that when you have businesses being able to provide for their power at a lower cost relative to the way that the cost of electricity has been increasing around 15% year on year, then you have economy improving and the businesses themselves doing better. And when you have the economy improving, then as a nation, your GDP increased, your economy is doing better. Overall, you then have more electricity demand. And you have then the competitive aspects of more electricity demand because the economy is doing better, purchasing a lot of electricity, bringing down the overall cost of electricity. And there's also many other ways out of the death spiral that Eskom has at its disposal, but it's currently kind of been fighting its fights to remain the monopoly. And thankfully, this policy is assisting in actually breaking the monopoly of Eskom and bringing on competition into the grid.
So this is positive news. I mean, this is at least a a good side of the story, and we look forward to seeing what happens, because obviously this is what we are seeing. It's a revised electricity pricing policy that's out there, and the expectation is that it is going to be gazetted today. And we thank you. We thank so much for your analysis and just a little bit of outlining of what this actually means for all of us. That was Matthew Cruz. He's an energy analyst and South African Independent Power Producer Association Management Committee member.